Hello, I'm Linda from paperboutique.blogspot.com. Today I'm demonstrating several techniques using Tim Holtz distressing inks, perfect pearls, and ultra thick embossing powder. I learned a number of these techniques by watching a 9-week series on YouTube that was sponsored by Two Peas in a Bucket. I'll have a link on my blog at www.paperboutique.blogspot.com. I think you'll love the series. First of all, I'd like to talk about perfect pearls and just what perfect pearls can do. Perfect pearls, I think the best way to describe it is it's a mica powder that today we're going to be using it with distress ink and doing some stamping, but there are many other techniques that you can use with perfect pearls. I purchased the perfect pearls. This is Forever Green, Forever Violet, Forever Red, and Forever Blue. In a kit, it came with a perfect medium, which is to allow you to stamp with it, and it came with 2 brushes. And the price was, I believe, $16.99 at Joann Fabric. Today I'm also using a non-stick craft sheet. This particular one is from Suze Weinberg. You can also use the Ranger mat, or Basil makes a splat mat. They're a little bit bigger. I think they're 12 by 15 or maybe 12 by 12. This one is a much smaller mat. Well, let's go ahead and begin. The first technique I'd like to demonstrate is how to use perfect pearls and stamping. Now, the perfect medium ink that comes with perfect pearls you can also use. You can also use a Versamark embossing ink or a watermark stamp pad, but I think we all have a lot of the distress ink, so you can use Tim Holtz distress ink with perfect pearls. You can also use Tim Holtz distress ink when embossing, which is great. Most dye-based inks dry quicker and you can't use them for these techniques, but Tim Holtz's distress ink has a special formulation and it dries a little bit slower. Well, let me show you the first technique. I'm going to just use a background stamp, and this would just be a fun tone-on-tone technique. And once again, you can use the Versamark to ink this up, but I thought it'd be fun just to show you using the distress ink. And I'm just going to do this really quickly, so if we don't get a perfect coverage, you'll know why. And I really wouldn't need to ink up this whole stamp, but I'm going to just put this down on my mat and then just go ahead and stamp very firmly. And you can see it's on the mat, but we'll wipe that off later. And there's and it's smudged a little bit. I was in a hurry. What you'll do is you'll take your perfect pearls, and I'm going to use, you can use the small brush, but I'm going to use the larger brush. You brush it over, and it's going to adhere to the dye-based ink. Okay? And I'm not going to take your time to go over this several times. Then what you're going to do is you're going to flick it off, and then you can keep brushing until you get most of that off, and it's just going to be a really nice tone on tone. To set this, I use a mini mister, and you just spray. I'm not going to do it now, but you spray it in the air like your wood perfume, and then just kind of move this in and out, and it sets it perfectly. I'm going to show you one that I did earlier that is already dried, and you can see it just, I'm going to lay it down, and it just gives you a nice look. And here's the same example with embossing with the Versamark ink. You can tell one is just a little bit deeper because you've got the tone-on-tone ink, and the Versamark gives you a little lighter coverage. That's one technique. The other technique I like to do with my distress ink, and you can use the Tim Holtz ink applicator, but I just have an inexpensive sponge. And what I did for this technique, and you can do this along card edges instead of doing just your pure ink, I brushed it along, or I dabbed it on along the shape, and then I brushed the embossing powder right over the, or not the embossing powder, but the perfect pearls over the top, and you just get a nice little decoration. And that's using the distress ink. Here's an example. I'm going to just leave them both there. Here's an example just using the Versamark. I did the same process, dabbed it along the side, and used the perfect pearls. And I just think that gives you a cute little look for something different than just pure distressed ink. In this case, I punched it, and then I did a Cuttlebug with the Swiss dots. And in this case, I just rubbed the ink over the entire die cut and then brushed it with the perfect pearls. On all of these techniques, I did set the perfect pearls with water, but I just really, I'm going to put that down so you can see a little bit without the glare. I just really like that technique. It's a little messy at first, as you can see, but you have it on your craft mat. Another thing that you can do with the perfect pearls, and I'll do this in a different video, is now that you've seen that there's extra perfect pearls here, what you can do is bring in your mini mister, mist it, and it'll kind of bead up, and then you can just put a piece of cardstock over the top of it and get a really nice background effect. Or what I'll do later after the video is I'll just tap this back into, like this, and back into my jar. I'm going to move that to the side. The next technique, and as I said, it's a little messy, so I'm going to grab just a baby wipe here to keep handy and wipe my hands off. The next technique I'd like to demonstrate, and I did this in my last video, the video where I made a free as a bird card, but I'd like to show you again because this is a technique video. I love the look of enamel or epoxy, and by using this technique you can take any die cut, Cricut die cut, any die cut punch, and make them look like they're an epoxy. And it's a pretty easy technique. I went a little slower in my last video, so if you'd like to take a look at that, you can. For this technique I'm using, and this is a well-used Versamark pad, and we're going to do the embossing. And I created a little handle, as you can see. I just used a glue dot and put a handle. You're going to ink this, dip it into the embossing powder, get a really good coating of embossing powder. Ultra thick. You're going to heat this up and then do it again. Do the gun, and then do it again. It's till you've got 3 coats, and you're going to heat it in between each one. Then what you'll end up with is this really smooth epoxy look. And what you can also do while it's wet is sprinkle it with glass beads. And I just love that particular technique. Just quickly want to show you, as we're running out of time, an example of a card made with these techniques. This particular circle is cut out of this cardstock, and I embossed it, or not embossed it, I used perfect pearls on it. The K is from the Plantain cartridge, and I did the embossing with the ultra thick embossing powder, cuddlebugged it, put the strip on, and we have our finished product. Well, I'd like to thank you for watching today, and please visit me at www.paperboutique.blogspot.com for more information. Bye-bye.